When I met Vadik, neither of us had anything to our name. We had just graduated from college and were both taking our first shaky steps up the career ladder. The only difference was that I was renting a small apartment since I'd moved from another city, while he still lived with his mom in a modest two-bedroom place on the outskirts of town. We met in the most ordinary, and embarrassing, way possible, at a shopping mall. I was coming down an escalator, lost my footing, twisted my ankle, and nearly went flying. Vadik caught me before I hit the ground and helped me get home. After that, things moved pretty quickly between us. Within 6 months, he proposed. He suggested we get married and move in together, well, technically, move in with his mom, since he hadn't yet managed to buy his own place, though he said he was planning to do that soon. I didn't press him about his finances. He spoke vaguely, hinting that he earned well and had already started saving for an apartment. My first meeting with my future mother-in-law, Elena Igorevna, went smoothly. We seemed to like each other. Still, the idea of living under the same roof didn't excite me. I had only just gotten used to living on my own and didn't want to adjust to someone else's rules again. Besides, I'd heard enough stories to know it might not turn out well. I shared my concerns with Vadik, and he convinced me we'd figure something out. In the beginning, everything really was great. We enjoyed being newlyweds, loved each other, and somehow managed to find compromises easily. We didn't visit his mom often, maybe once every couple of months, since we both worked a lot and preferred to spend weekends together. Elena Igorevna seemed understanding and didn't demand much attention. I even started to think I'd gotten lucky and all those horror stories about difficult mothers-in-law wouldn't apply to me. But I was wrong. One evening, during a holiday dinner, Vadik casually mentioned that we were planning to take out a mortgage on a small studio apartment. "We'll start small," he said, "and then later we can save up for something bigger." His mom immediately tensed up. "And where exactly are you going to get the down payment?" she asked. "I've managed to save a little over $1 million in the 3 years I've been working," Vadik explained. "It should be enough for something modest. We've already been looking at a place, about 32 square meters, kind of far out, but the building is finished and the developer isn't overpricing it." "But it'll be ours," I added with a smile. "Yours?" Elena Igorevna's expression changed instantly. "Whose exactly?" "Yours, dear." "What's your salary?" "About 30,000. I felt a flicker of irritation at her tone but kept my voice calm. "Over 70,000, not counting bonuses." "We're doing just fine, thank you for your concern." Everyone at the table could tell where she was going with this. Vadik quickly tried to change the subject, but his mother wasn't done. "So, let me get this straight," she continued. "My son saved the money for the down payment, the savings are in his account, and he started long before your wedding. And he'll be the one paying the mortgage too. But the apartment will be yours, as in, shared? Is that what you think, Svetlana?" I looked her straight in the eyes. If there was one thing my job had taught me, it was how to handle pressure. People often assumed that being an analyst meant doing nothing important, but in reality, I dealt with criticism all the time and knew how to keep my composure. "It's not just what I think," I said evenly. "That's how the law works." She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, now you remember the law. Everyone's gotten so clever these days. Always looking out for themselves, I see." I glanced at my husband, hoping he'd step in, but he stayed silent, studying his plate as if it were the most fascinating thing in the world. I took a breath and continued, still calm. "So what do you think we should do? Since Vadik got married before buying an apartment, should we rent forever? Or maybe get divorced on paper, each buy property separately, and only then think about starting a family?" Her face lit up. "That would actually be the most honest and sensible solution. Yes, you should get divorced." I couldn't help but laugh. "Are you serious? Not even a prenup, just straight to divorce?" "Oh, I know all about those contracts," she waved her hand dismissively. "A friend of mine, her daughter had one. Didn't help at all. The court declared it invalid, said it wasn't properly grounded in law or something like that. In the end, she still had to split the apartment with that useless husband. And, by the way, Vadim, his mom added, I forgot to tell you, now that girl is free. No apartment, sure, but at least her ex bought out her share and paid her off. Vadim just shrugged and glanced at me. Mom, what does that have to do with us? Svetlana and I already decided we're buying a place, and we're not getting divorced. We both work, I honestly don't see what your issue is. Fine, Elena Igorevna said through clenched teeth. We'll talk about this later. Thankfully, that unpleasant conversation ended there. We finished dinner, made small talk, and went home. But we never bought that apartment. Vadim never clearly explained why he changed his mind. The official version was that he wanted to save more money first, said it made more sense to go straight for a bigger place. But deep down, I understood. His mother had talked him out of it. I just didn't know why. Not long after that awkward dinner, my father called with shocking news. It turned out he had a distant cousin who had recently passed away. She had no close relatives, so she left her apartment in Arkhangelsk to him. My parents decided to sell it and give me the money. At first, I was overjoyed. My immediate instinct was to tell Vadim, but then I remembered his mother's reaction, and how he'd handled everything. So I decided to be cautious. I didn't tell him about the money until after the sale was finalized. I got lucky and found a great place. The amount was just enough to buy a spacious 3-bedroom apartment with a huge kitchen and a beautiful view. The only detail I kept to myself was that, on paper, the buyer, and official owner, was my father. Vadim didn't ask to see any documents. His mom didn't either. And I didn't bring up the legal details. No one even seemed bothered that I chose the apartment on my own. It felt like what mattered most to them was that Vadim's savings stayed untouched. I didn't do it to deceive anyone. I just had a strong gut feeling that I needed a safety net, and I chose to trust it. Turns out, that instinct didn't fail me. We hadn't even fully settled into the new place when one evening, out of nowhere, Vadim awkwardly told me he was leaving me, for another woman. He claimed he'd loved her since he was young, but she had chosen someone else back then. Now she was single again, and he said he couldn't fight his feelings anymore. I swallowed my tears and asked as calmly as I could. You mean Ella, right? He stared at me, stunned. How do you know? I didn't answer. I just told him to pack his things and leave. But then came the second surprise. Vadim actually expected me to leave. He said he'd give me his savings as compensation for my share of the apartment. $1 million for half of a 3-bedroom place. It was almost funny how little he and his mother thought of me. I didn't explain anything. I just kicked him out. I barely had time to process everything when the doorbell rang. Standing there was Elena Igorevna, and a pretty young woman with a large suitcase. Well, Svetlana, my almost former mother-in-law began coldly, I suggest you don't let pride get in the way of decency. Pack your things, take the money my son is offering, and don't stand in the way of Vadim and Alla's happiness. I couldn't help the sarcasm in my voice. I'm glad you're familiar with the concept of decency. But Vadim has absolutely nothing to do with this apartment. He didn't contribute a single dollar, not to the purchase, not even to the renovation. So he's free to go wherever he wants. You won't prove anything, she laughed in my face. The apartment was bought during the marriage, so it's marital property. I smiled. No need to ruin their confidence too early. Without another word, I closed the door. But Elena Igorevna wasn't about to give up. She convinced Vadim to take me to court, even though it cost him a hefty legal fee. I won't lie, it hurt. His betrayal cut deep. But I couldn't hold back my laughter when I saw his mother's face in court after learning that the apartment didn't belong to me at all, it belonged to my father. As for Vadim and Alla, I don't know how their story turned out. And honestly, I don't care. It was the biggest disappointment of my life, but, in a strange way, I'm even grateful for it. That harsh lesson taught me something I'll never forget. Even the people closest to you can surprise you in the worst possible ways.